How hard is it for everyone everywhere to come together and pray? Matthew's Gospel, chapter by chapter and verse by verse. Now this is points back to that relationship that we develop as believers. I mean, we're not afraid to profess Jesus is Lord, because we are the sons and children of God. Verse 34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. Now this is prophecy, prophecy coming from Micah, chapter 7, verse 6. Micah, chapter 7, verse 6. Let's back up to verse 5 so you get a context. Trust ye not in a friend, but ye not confidence in a guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. Now this is why we came here. For the son dishonoreth the father, and the daughter rises up against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies are the men of his own house. That's pretty deep. Back to Matthew, verse 37. For he that loveth the father or the mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. God first. He's always number one. Verse 38. And he that taketh not his cross and follow me after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. Hey, he said it. I didn't say that. And how do you do that? Well, if you find your mission, your purpose of being here on this planet, that's when you lose your life that you were originally given, but you found a new life, an eternal life. Okay? Verse 40. He that receiveth you receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. 41. He that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward. And he that receiveth a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. It's all about what you believe. Verse 42. And whatsoever shall give drink unto one of these little ones a cup of cold water only in the name of a disciple, verily I say unto you, he shall in no wise lose his reward. Now what does that mean? Well, if it's he's basically talking about being kind, having a generous, kind spirit. If you have a generous, kind spirit, then you will be rewarded. And remember, what you do in secret, the Lord will reward you openly. Let's go a little further. Let's get into chapter 11, verse 1. And it came to pass, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Now he sent the disciples out. They went out, healed, cast out devils, healing the sick. Now he's going around again. He's preaching in the synagogues and in their chapels and temples. Now when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples. See, Herod had put John in prison. He wasn't dead yet, but he had put him in prison because he talked about him and his sister. He knew he wasn't supposed to be going with his sister-in-law. And John called him out about it. So they put him in prison. Now when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? Now, John, he should have known that he was Messiah. He was the one that they was talking about that was coming. And it wasn't anybody else. They didn't have to look no further than Jesus himself. Verse 3, And he said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and show John again those things which you do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached them. And blessed is he whosoever not be offended in me. I guess he told them, who he was, right? Verse 7. And as they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken in the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in the king's houses. But what went out ye for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. That's another prophecy that has come to pass. Verse 11, chapter 11. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, have thou not risen a greater than John the Baptist? Notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. That's putting pronouns before adjectives. But what he's saying is, hey, there's nothing better than John the Baptist. If you want a prophet, John the Baptist was the prophet. Verse 12. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heavens suffered violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if ye will receive it, it is Elijah's which was for to come. He that has ears to hear, let him hear. See, he's telling you, John the Baptist was a prophet. Elijah talked about it, spoke about it. Verse 16, where until I liken this generation, it is like until the children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows, and saying, we have piped unto you, and ye have not danced. We have mourned unto you, and ye have not lamented. And what is he talking about? What does a prophet do? Prophet tells you something, but if you don't believe it, you keep doing what you're doing. Verse 18, for John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he had a devil. Verse 19, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, behold, a man of gluttonous and a wine-bibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. But wisdom is justified of her children. See, they talked about John, they talked about Jesus, and hey, they'll talk about you too. Verse 20, then he began to upbraid the cities wherein the most of his mighty works were done, because they repented not. Now, what does that mean? There's a lot of places that he went, they rejected him. They didn't want to hear what he had to say. So what did he do? He went on to another city. Verse 21, woe unto thee, Chorazin! Woe unto thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at the day of judgment than for you. See, there were some cities that just didn't receive what he had to say. And as you see, it's going to be pretty bad for them in the end. Verse 23, and thou, Capernaum, which are exalted into heaven, thou shalt be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works which have been done in thee would have been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. And what day is that? That's until the day in which he was talking at that time. But you see, when the gospel is preached, and if it's not received, then what do? You move on to the next city or the next person. And, like I said, it's going to be better for them than Sodom and Gomorrah if they'd have seen the works, because he healed a lot of people, cleansed a lot of people, lepers. Healed raised the dead. Mighty works. If the average bear would have seen it, they would have repented. This is what he's saying. And I'm out of time. I'm Mr. Chestnut. We'll see you next week for another episode of Life is One Day at a Time.com. How hard is it for everyone everywhere to come together and pray. Stop. Take a minute. Pray. Rejoice. Don't forget, lifeisOneDayAtAtime.com comes on every week with Minister Chestnut live and in living color. So be there every week because Jesus is our rock.